About that. Good morning to you. It's great to see you.
Kay.
Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Talk to me, first of all, about what you'd like to discuss today and the crackdown on benefit fraudsters.
Well, we're publishing a bill today that introduces new measures that we think that we need to get public money back. You know, it's never acceptable to steal from the social security system, ever. But at this moment in time, we need that money for our health service and to support people who really need it. So we want to be able to do new checks with banks to say if somebody is receiving universal credit or other relevant benefits, do banks have any information that they're outside the eligibility criteria? You know, you can't have more than £16,000 in the bank. So we will ask banks to help us with that information. We will then use that data for human beings to investigate those cases, to find those people where we've got fraud. Then we want to have new powers so that we can do search operations ourselves rather than relying on the police. And then the final bit is the backstop. Because at the moment, we can get money back through the benefits system if people are claiming universal credit or other things. We can get money back through PAYE, through HMRC. But for some people, if they're really determined not to give that money back and they're not on benefits or on PAYE, then we need the ability to take that money from bank accounts. And finally, if they really still are so determined that they won't give the money back, we will apply to the courts to disqualify them from driving. That's a power that already exists in the Child Maintenance Service, so that we know it works. And that's what we want to do, make sure that we've got the right powers to take this on.
Okay.
It's not acceptable and we need the money back.
What role do you believe, does the government believe, that certain tech companies played in the Southport murders?
Well, first, if I may say, Kay, I'm just devastated for what those families have been through and for the loss of those 3 little girls. And forgive me for just saying that, but I know everybody's heart breaks.
Injured as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. Everybody's heart breaks. In response to the horrendous situation that led to that attack, we're going to have a full inquiry. That's important for transparency, so the answer to your question will be found out by that inquiry. Notwithstanding that, where we need to tighten legislation so that we limit people's access to knives that can do such a damage, we will take those steps. And Yvette Cooper set that out in the House of Commons yesterday.
Tell me about the inquiry. How long is it going to take?
Well, obviously that's for
quick, doesn't it?
That is for the person who's doing it. It's important that they're independent, but of course it needs to be quick. It needs to get to the heart of the matter. These are very serious issues and we need to make sure that the system is improved so that we can make sure that we properly stop anything like this happening again.
And will you be punishing Amazon for selling a knife to a 17-year-old?
We've got to have the right powers to stop this. As I say, all of that information about how this could possibly happen.
Will you be punishing Amazon?
That information will come out in the inquiry, and I'm not going to prejudge.
So we'll have to wait for an
there.
inquiry. It's going to take years, though, isn't it?
I'm sure the people doing it will want it to happen quickly. They don't want to put the families and others and the whole community in Southport through any more time than's necessary. So I'm sure that they will be very mindful of that point.
But quite clearly, Amazon broke the law by selling a knife to a 17-year-old.
Well, I'm not going to prejudge any of the details there. Obviously, I don't know and we haven't had investigations or that yet, so I don't want to prejudge it. But I don't underestimate how very serious this is.
Okay.
We know that knife crime is an issue. It's a real issue, and we've got to take every possible step to stop the flow of knives.
Should the Prime Minister have made people aware that ricin and a terror manual were found in the murderer's home?
I just know Keir Starmer wouldn't have wanted to do anything that could have possibly put a prosecution at risk.
Put a prosecution at risk?
Because, you know, he would, as our country's former DPP, as the most senior prosecutor, he would have taken the judgment based on the possibility of risk to the trial.
How would it have put the trial at risk? I don't get it, because in October, of course, it was announced that he was charged with the ricin in his house and also the terror manual that he'd downloaded. So the details were revealed then, before the trial. So how, you know, obviously it couldn't prejudice the trial.
But politicians' words can have consequences, and I think Keir, as a very senior lawyer, will have taken that
against from the public when it's so important.
If And if there are questions related to this, we're going to have an inquiry. There'll be full transparency about this. And, you know, I understand people's concerns, but the most important thing is that we were able to get some tiny bit of justice for those families. So I'm sure Keir will have taken that
That's nothing to do
judgment.
with Keir Starmer not telling us that this could well have been a terror incident. It didn't stop him in 2017, for example, when he tweeted about the Finsbury Park bombing and saying then that it was a terror attack.
Well, as I said, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but you have to make these...
The Prime Minister should be telling us what's going on. It's a privilege that he has that job.
Absolutely.
And he should be telling the people of the country what's happening.
I understand that people want to know what's going on, and transparency is really important. That's why we're having an inquiry.
That's nothing to do with the court case, is it?
Well, the point that I've made is that Keir has to take a judgment, as any Prime Minister would do, about the importance of protecting that prosecution.
But it didn't impact the prosecution. We've gone over that.
OK.
OK, is the scheme to prevent terrorist violence fit for purpose?
Listening to what I've heard that's come out, you've got to have massive questions about what is happening there and how on earth...
Costs about 40 million quid a year to run Prevent. Should we have another look at it?
Absolutely. I think we've got to be sure that that scheme is doing the thing that it was set up to do. Clearly, terrorism and the threats... Well, I just listened to what we've heard. You know, as I've said numerous times, we'll have an inquiry, so we'll have more information about what's going on. But we know that terrorism threats and other threats that we face that are very serious are changing all the time. So I think we absolutely need to review it, check that we've got the right powers available, check that we've got the right people doing that work. It's incredibly important, and I think we've absolutely got to look at it. OK, you mentioned the inquiry again. What are the parameters going to be? Well, those will be set out very shortly. I'm sure the person who's doing it will lead that independently. As we were saying before, we know that public inquiries can take a long time and they can be very difficult for people to go through. So it's got to be done mindful of the hurt and the suffering that people have already been through. Do you think that the results of the inquiry will be known during the lifetime of this government? Well, I'm not going to second guess, but I mean... Because these questions are just too urgent for it to be lengthy. I think your question is absolutely right. I don't want to prejudge or to be saying, oh, it should be this length or that length, but your question is absolutely right, because we don't want people to have to go through a lengthy period of giving evidence and so on. You know, I know only too well what that's like, having worked with the Hillsborough families over many years. So you asked the absolutely right question. I just don't want to, you know, give an arbitrary time. Let me ask it in a different way then. Would you be hopeful that we would know the results of the inquiry during the lifetime of this present government? I hope it can be as quick as possible, and forgive me, you know, not giving a specific answer to that question, but as I said, I don't want to prejudge what the person independently of government doing the inquiry might say, but I want it to be as quick as humanly possible. It's good to see you. Thanks very much.